Hi there, and welcome to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas, and I want to thank you so much for being here with us and being a proactive parent, getting the resources that you need to get your child to their optimum level of recovery. And we know that every child's level of recovery is different, but that children today all over the world are recovering from autism. They're sleeping better, children who were nonverbal or speaking, children who couldn't digest food properly and had constant stomach aches, like my son, are now healthy and happy. They can focus in a classroom, they can make friends, and they can live a normal, fulfilling, and happy life. And I was once told to drug my own son and just try behavioral therapies when he was diagnosed with autism, and that there would be nothing else we could do for him. But fortunately, having a holistic background in craniosacral therapy and having worked with the brain for decades prior to his diagnosis, I knew that the brain could heal. And I'm hoping that you have the belief as well that you know that your child can get better. And I knew my son could get better, but I had to research what to do for autism. And now, 14 years later, my son is fully recovered. He's no longer even diagnosable. So I'm grateful that you're here because I want you to be able to have the resources and know exactly what you can do for your child. And I know that there's a lot of information out there and it can be overwhelming. And so twice a year, I actually put together a free master class, and one is starting on March 19th. Very soon. And because you're here as a listener, I'm giving you priority registration. You can register for it now at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/masterclass, all one word, masterclass. And that will allow you to register for this free online class where I'm walking you through the steps and helping you understand what all needs to happen for your child, because it's really important to know the right steps. Many people who have come to me have been on this journey for years and their child hasn't gotten better. And what I showed them helped their child to actually get better. They got results, and that's what it's about. So please join me for that and share the link with anybody you know who could be interested, because it is open to everyone. With 1 in 59 kids out there being diagnosed today, there are a lot of people who need these resources, and we want to share with them and help everyone. Today's show is going to be in lieu of current worldwide situations that are going on. The coronavirus is something that we've all heard in the news. It's everywhere. There's a lot of people kind of freaking out about it, not sure where it came from, what it's about. So I wanted to address it right away because I also want to give you some things that you can do to help promote and improve your child's immune system as well, because mostly the people who are at risk are people with lowered immunity. And otherwise, we get a bad virus, we take care of ourselves and we get better. But what we need to know is where did this come from? And we're going to address the aspect of what are the risks of using animal tissues in human therapies. And with this, I'm really excited. We have a world-renowned specialist with us here today. And her name is Dr. Judy Mikovits. I'm going to give you some background on Dr. Mikovits. And then we're going to dive into some of these issues and this current issue of the coronavirus, where it came from, and give you some resources as far as, again, what you can do for your child and your family. Dr. Mikovits, Judy Mikovits, earned her BA in chemistry from University of Virginia in 1980 and a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology from George Washington University in 1992. In her 35-year quest to understand and treat chronic diseases, she has co-authored seminal papers culminating at least a decade of research in each of 4 fields: immunology, natural products chemistry, epigenetics, HIV/AIDS drug development. In addition to more than 50 peer-reviewed publications and book chapters, Dr. Mikovits holds a patent on combination therapy for prostate cancer using botanical compositions and bicalutamide. I'll let her explain that to you. And authored books Plague and Plague of Corruption. The formation of MIRC Incorporated in 2016 with colleague Dr. Frank Russetti has afforded Dr. Mikovits the opportunity to come full circle back to her first love, which are natural products chemistry, Mark Incorporated, is a consulting company focused on education for prevention and treatment autoimmune, autoinflammatory diseases resulting from drugs and environmental toxins. Her heart and passion is to focus on natural products, chemistry, and plant-based drug therapies. Her current focus is on medical cannabis and breakthroughs in understanding of the pathophysiology of neuroimmune diseases as acquired endocannabinoid immune dysfunction. Dr. Mikovits has 2 books, as I mentioned, out, and I will link to both of them on the show notes, which will be today. Today's show will be naturallyrecoveringautism.com/73, just the number 73. So, Dr. Mikovits, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm really excited to have you here.
I'm really happy to be here, Karen. Thanks so much.
Why don't we dive right in?
Lots to talk about.
There's so much to talk about, and I know this hour is going to fly by. So I'm thinking it probably makes the most sense to start at the beginning. What are the risks of using animal tissues in human therapies? Do you want to begin right from the start there? Okay.
Right from the start. I think you can argue that if we had heeded the risks that our research found a decade ago when we discovered the mouse viruses were a key part of some populations of kids with autism, that is the infection with murine leukemia viruses, cancer-causing viruses, retroviruses that we discovered and published a decade ago in some of the sickest kids with autism. If the government had and the scientific community had heeded that warning rather than not, we wouldn't even be sitting here talking about coronavirus today, because it is using the animal tissues that we use in all of our vaccine development. We use some kind of animal tissue to grow, to replicate the viruses that we're using, that we're making vaccines for. These are the antigens for vaccines. So the coronavirus really should be called SARS-2, severe acute respiratory syndrome virus number 2, because it is that virus that is the coronavirus now that is infecting people. And it's pretty clear now it came right from the laboratory research that we've been doing since SARS-1 in 2001. We know that when we attempt to grow viruses and make vaccines, that sometimes instead of attenuating or weakening, we create in the lab more pathogenic species. And that's exactly what this coronavirus is. That's what happened with the XMRVs and making polio vaccines all the way back in the 30s, started this epidemic of autism.
And this is where it's important for people to understand, things that start in labs. I mean, we talk about Lyme's disease and AIDS and this coronavirus and the SARS and why it can't be contained and why it even had to happen in the first place. We need to take a short break right here, but when we come back, we're going to dive right into answering some of these questions for you. So stay with us. You're listening to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas. We will be right back.
Have you ever wondered why some children recover from their symptoms of autism while others never seem to get any better? After 13 years of research, Karen Thomas has recovered her own son from his symptoms of autism naturally. She now shares how she did it with you in her free webinar so that you can have the right resources and knowledge to help your child. The definition of recovery is to regain health. Karen offers this to you in 4 stages: healing the gut, natural heavy metal detoxification, balancing the co-infections of autism, brain support, and repair. Register now for this free webinar to help you know what you can do to help your child to sleep better, be more calm, improve focus, and reach their fullest potential to live a happy, healthy life. Go to naturallyrecoveringautism.com/free workshop, empowering parents with the resources resources to naturally recover autism from a
Hi there, and welcome back to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas, and today we are talking about retroviruses and coronavirus as dangers in using animal tissues in human therapy. And we have Dr. Judy Mikovits with us, who is a specialist in this field with the research that's being done in some of these labs. And so, Dr. Mikovits, before the break, we were starting to get into a little bit of how some of these things did start in labs and how it also pertains to autism. And how are these things coming out? I mean, can you explain more of this to us, please?
Yeah, certainly, Karen. The viruses, as we develop immune therapies, biological therapies, we manipulate these viruses. That is, we grow them in animal tissues. So we can't study things like retroviruses. The first retrovirus was discovered by my mentor, Frank Rossetti, in 1980, the first human disease-causing retrovirus, and that was a leukemia-causing virus. So we started studying that all the way back in 1980, and we have to grow it in cell lines that in animal tissue. That's what animal cell lines are. Normally, cells don't grow outside of the body. So in an attempt to actually understand what causes things like autism and cancers, I call them all acquired endocannabinoid immune deficiencies, because remember, with HIV, the human immune deficiency virus, that caused AIDS, acquired immune deficiency dysfunction syndrome. And so really autism and the entire spectrum of disease is an acquired immune dysfunction or deficiency, and now we appreciate that the endocannabinoid system is huge in the development of this disease. So, and it is viruses and pathogens, infections, which cause immune deficiencies and dysfunction. So in studying these, the viruses and the immune system's response to the viruses, in 2009, we uncovered that, in fact, at the heart of a lot of autism is the immune dysfunction that is acquired by the vaccination process, by the contaminants that are in vaccines, and they're other kinds of viruses. Coronavirus is an RNA virus. Retroviruses are RNA viruses. That means they're nucleic acids. They're not DNA like our blueprint for our genome. They're actually RNA. And so that's this comes out, literally comes straight out of the laboratory, and we didn't realize it really I guess we did realize it, but it was covered up, and that's what our two books are about. The plague shows you the disease that's coming out and the magnitude. It's not 1 in 59, it's closer to 1 in 36. So as we've increased this vaccination schedule since 1983 without liability, in fact, what we're doing is just injecting more and more and more of these viral nucleic acids directly into our children and what we would call immune incompetent hosts. So little children, newborns, don't have the immune system to degrade these viruses, this nucleic acid, which adults really have a very strong system for degrading the nucleic acids from viruses.
And I noticed on the CDC's website, it says every year tens of thousands of Americans will get sick from diseases spread between animals and people, and these are known as zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases are caused by harmful germs like viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungus. And these germs can cause many different types of illnesses in people and animals, ranging from mild to serious illness and death. Then from your book, Plague of Corruption, you write zoonotic diseases account for more than 60% of known infectious diseases and at least 75% of new emerging infectious diseases. And so if this
Correct.
is so prevalent, I'm wondering, how it can be missed, or what people need to know and what parents need to know. And if the endocannabinoid system, which you're expert in, and I've done shows on CBD in the past, and so hopefully I'll link to some of those show notes for for listeners who haven't heard more about it, but we can talk more about it here. But if the endocannabinoid system can it be used as part of the prevention? Is that one of the ways in where the system is so deeply affected by these? Because we will, of course, talk about some of the ways of prevention as well. Do you have any insight on that?
Oh, absolutely. So what I consider the easy way to explain to your listeners, the endocannabinoid system is like the dimmer switch on the flame. Think of inflammation. The middle of that word is flame, and so it's a fire. So when your immune system is responding to something, any virus, but let's just say the coronavirus because everybody's concerned about it, but when your immune system when you're infected by a virus, your immune system immediately sees that and as a fire. So it sends fire trucks to the fire. And that's inflammation. So the fire trucks are all the cells, your white blood cells, your immune system, and their job is to put out the fire. And the endocannabinoid system is the dimmer switch. It says, okay, guys, it's not that big a threat. You can calm down now. You've got the fire. It's really just a few smoldering embers. And so that is what the endocannabinoid system does, and we should all respond very quickly and very well to these threats, and we do unless you've compromised that immune system. Number one, by being an infant, a newborn, and it's not developed yet. You don't know self from non-self. That's the primary goal of your immune system, tell self from non-self. So when you're a newborn, you can't do that. So, and these immunizations or vaccinations had never, until 1986 or so, when the liability was removed, these shots had never been given to somebody under the age of 3. I got vaccinated when I was 5 years old, and I was walking and talking in kindergarten. So when we, and we didn't make the same kind of shots. Now we're using shots where we've manipulated animal tissue, and you mentioned all of these diseases, Lyme disease, all of these bacteria, Borrelia, Babesia, retroviruses, they're all coming through that needle and driving the flame.
So we need to take a short break right here. This is really, really interesting information and very important. And so I want to dive back into it as soon as we come back. You're listening to Naturally Recovering Autism. Please stay with us. Hi there, and welcome back to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas, and today we're talking about retroviruses and the current coronavirus outbreak as one of the dangers in using animal tissues in human therapies. And we have Dr. Judy Mikovits here with us today, who's an expert in this field. And before the break, we were talking about some of these diseases that are basically being injected into the system, and how easy it is for us to get them. Lyme's disease is so huge in children with autism as well. I see it in almost all of the kids that I help the parents and work with. So, Dr. Mikovits, I'm wondering, how do we solve this current problem, since it seems to be growing?
Yes, it absolutely is growing. Well, the first thing you do to solve it is stop all the inoculations. Simply stop all the shots. Because what these vaccines do is they turn your immune system away from healing what the pathogens really are, what you're really looking at, and they turn your immune system and your endocannabinoid system away from that. Where we've the dimmer switch is the endocannabinoid system. Is the flame too high? Is the threat that big? And so because of these vaccinations, with all the aluminum, all the toxins that are in them, the immune system is tricked into thinking the flame and the fire is higher than it really is. So first thing we do is stop all the vaccinations, stop everything. And then vitamin C, natural products that you talk about. We strengthen the immune system. We strengthen the endocannabinoid system with different forms of cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids, that is, from plants. So that's why you read that. My passion is natural products chemistry. So since 1980, I've made drugs and therapies from plants. And that patent you read is using different plant combinations to tell the immune system as therapies, to tell the immune system, okay, this is your focus right now, and the flame, the insult. These coronaviruses are nothing in a healthy person. They might cough a day or two. They are all around us. They've always been all around us. They infect animals, every species. It's like, Zika and/or retroviruses and/or Ebola. There are many strains of these in animals, and it's when they jump species. That's what you call them, zoonotic diseases. When they jump species, they're an issue. And they're jumping species because they're coming through a needle, just like Borrelia. Lyme disease really doesn't, the majority of the Lyme disease in this country isn't coming from the ticks. It's coming because these are the very things that are in those animal cell lines in the laboratories we're working with, along with fungus and other things. So what we first do is stop everything, and then natural therapies like vitamin C. Vitamin C will protect, that's the anti-inflammatory antioxidant, to protect the outside of the cells. If the virus or the pathogen should get inside the cells, then you look at the intracellular, like glutathione. Your natural glutathione is your natural antioxidant. That's your weapon. That's your protection. And all of these shots and all of these toxins in our world, not just the shots, but 5G, 4G, just wireless electromagnetic energy and forces. Those all turn on the flame in your immune system. So calming down all the outside inflammation, no gluten, keep the inflammatory stresses away from the body, and then just enhance the anti-inflammatories with natural vitamin C, with phytocannabinoids. We can use hemp very effectively. Other things that modulate those endocannabinoid. There are hundreds, really, of endocannabinoid receptors and molecules in your body. So even things like yoga enhance your natural, your endogenous endocannabinoids to be produced. Touch, we're told not to touch anybody now, but a hug will turn on your endocannabinoid system and allow anandamide, which is your natural THC, if you will. That it's a product called anandamide, and that means joy. That means peace in the Sanskrit. So putting your body back into a state of peace, and literally touching and hugging turns on that. And here in the news, it's like, don't touch anybody, and we're all in fear. Fear and stress, represses the immune system and causes that flame to go higher from a response. We need not fear these things. They're in our natural environment. Yes, we're driving them into people via vaccine. And the plague of corruption surrounding this infection, the retrovirus infections, the Zika, the Ebola, all of these outbreaks are because we're taking these natural, these pathogens in other animals, and we're injecting them by our very immune system. We're injecting them, bypassing the skin, bypassing 70% of the immune system that's in the gut, along with the endocannabinoid system. So we're creating this immune dysfunction by these very shots loaded with toxins. So they haven't been in our world except for the last 30 years, since 1983, and now I know it's probably, to your audience, it's probably, everyone's well aware that Del Bigtree and Bobby D. Kennedy have now won several lawsuits where the CDC has to literally take down what is on its website saying vaccines do not cause autism, because in fact they could not produce a single studies demonstrating that they don't, because in fact the vaccines have never been tested. So we can stop all of these outbreaks right now if we stop this use of animal tissue. In every vaccine, you cannot grow a virus. It's just a piece of nucleic acid. You cannot make a viral particle without the machinery of the host. That means your own cells, your own cholesterol. It makes a particle, the lipid bilayer, everything about viruses are made in human cells and or other animal tissues, and that's what we're injecting directly into our children.
And that a retrovirus is basically, it can't replicate without a host. So it comes in and it actually is using its own gene expression into the gene of the host. So they're sort of using our system once they get inside as well to sort of exacerbate things. We need to take a short break right here. When we come back, we will dive right back into this. You're listening to Naturally Recovering Autism. Stay with us there, and welcome back to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas, and today we are talking about various retroviruses, viruses, the coronavirus outbreak, and as they pertain to the dangers in using animal tissues in human therapies. And we have Dr. Judy Mikovits with us here today, and who's a specialist in this field. And before the break, we were talking about a lot of things about where these have come from, how they get in our systems, and a lot of it has to do with vaccinations, and then how do we solve it now? And so also, the natural tears, and as you know, this is Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm all about natural, and please join me for my free masterclass that's coming up. Again, the link is naturallyrecoveringautism.com/masterclass, where I'll walk you through the 4 stages necessary and then share with you an open, briefly, I will open up to my membership anybody who is interested in being walked through what to do naturally. And we're talking about what Dr. Mikovits was sharing with you, strengthening the immune system. You've got to help start with healing the gut. The gut controls the immune system, it controls the brain. You've got to heal it up. You need certain natural antioxidants, various detoxification aspects, but you've got to do this in a specific order, and you need to do it slowly and safely for your child's timeline. And so Dr. Mikovits, can you talk a little bit more about some of the natural tears and things that you have found to be helpful? I did also want to mention that I noticed you've published a paper. It came out roughly, I think, in the 90s on the benefits of skullcap or bark-ilin powder. And I'm actually adding this to my program right now as well, because it's combating viruses too. So I did want to make sure that we touched on that.
Yeah, Bakelin. Most of my research, as you mentioned in my biography in the beginning, has been with natural products. So Chinese skullcap, Scutellaria bakelinus georgii, that it's a very specific strain, and this is important. So yes, plant-based cures. Phyto means plant. So phytocannabinoids are the cannabinoids that don't come from within, but come from plants in order to heal these things. So combinations of phytoplant cannabinoids and things like Chinese skullcap, that's what that patent is all about. We made combinations of Scutellaria bakelinus georgii. We use reishi. Reishi mushrooms are fabulous for antifungals. And so what we did in that particular patent is we took advantage of synergies. That is, these plants in your immune system, in your endocannabinoid system, they they crosstalk, they communicate between different pathways, and the pathways have kind of like Grand Central Station in New York City at the subway stop. So there are key points which we can take advantage of our knowledge and all the decades of research and just formulate different plant products in very, very, very low doses, and then they synergize. That is, they combine with each other, not in an additive way, 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 can equal 10 or 20 or 100. So we can really take advantage of plant chemistry and our knowledge of how those plants interact with our immune system and endocannabinoid system to enhance our healing. That is to shut the flame off sooner, because these, as you mentioned right before the break, these viruses, they use all of our cellular machinery, not just retroviruses, but coronaviruses, which aren't retroviruses, but they're RNA viruses. They're just pieces of nucleic acid. They need your cells. They need to co-opt. They kind of steal the nutrition from you. And the easiest way to shut them off is give them the anti-inflammatories. You know, it means that's exactly the word. Stop the flame, to turn off the fire. And that's what we can do with all the anti-inflammatory plants. So yes, bakelin has been shown, Scutellaria bakelinus georgii. We isolate just the bakelin in our studies, and we published several papers on them after I left the National Cancer Institute. My lab continued with Dr. Rossetti to publish several more papers. So we now know that Scutellaria bakelinus, bakelin, the compound, works against coronaviruses. It prevents their ability to enter the cell. If you can't get into the cell, it's a lock and key type mechanism. If you can't open the door, you can't hurt the immune system. You can't establish a stronghold. You can't be infectious, and it'll just go away. They will die because they need your cells to live. All of these viruses do. So plants, and Scutellaria, reishi mushrooms are fabulous. Phytocannabinoids that target the inflammatory receptor. The immune receptor is called CB2, cannabinoid receptor number 2, and that's the one in the gut. So minerals are also extremely important because zinc, magnesium, calcium, our soils are all depleted of these key minerals, and viruses need them too, so they steal them from your body, and that causes a lot, or it contributes to the gut dysfunction. So we use, simply using natural products from the earth to restore the balance of minerals, to restore the health to the immune system. We use Dr. Zach Bush's, we used to call it Restore, and now it's a little different compound, but that Restore comes in a sinus spray. So the coronaviruses, infect through the nasal passages, the throat, the nose. So what we've been doing is we've been spraying, natural, that Restore spray in our nose. Keep your sinuses open and clear and not inflamed. Keep, if it's allergy season, it's not surprising that new pathogens kind of can take hold in the spring or in winter, because your nasal passages are cracked and they're cold, and your skin as well. So the best thing to do is keep these really healthy healing balms. We do an awful lot with cannabis in balms. Put it on your skin. Your skin is your front line of defense of your immune system. The next one is your gut. So using things like products like Restore to heal your gut, and I know you've talked about healing the gut a great deal on this program. All of those techniques will keep you safe from all of the viruses, coronaviruses, and the Borrelia, Lyme disease, and the rest.
Right. And it's really important, too. Parents need to know, you've got to watch the foods that you eat, because it is your choice to choose organic foods and things that, gluten-free. You don't want to be eating foods that are sprayed with glyphosate. And I'll link to an interview I did with Dr. Stephanie Seneff in the past on glyphosate. So listeners are aware of that too. We need to take a short break right here. Stay with us. Hi there, and welcome back to Naturally Recovering Autism. I'm your host, Karen Thomas, and today we're talking about various viruses, the coronaviruses, dangers in using animal tissues in human therapies. We have Dr. Judy Mikovits here with us, who is an expert in this field, and we've also been discussing solutions because, as you know, I'm all about solutions. What can you do? Okay, these things have happened or they're out there. What can we do to protect our families and ourselves and our children? There are solutions, and before the break, I started to talk a little bit about glyphosate. As you know, it's so important to eat organically whenever possible. Make sure that your foods aren't sprayed with certain chemicals, one of them being glyphosate. And I will link to an interview that I did on the show notes, which will again be at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/73. But where we talk with Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who is a specialist in glyphosate. We talk about it in detail. But Dr. Mikovits, could you give our listeners some insight into some of these aspects about glyphosate and pesticides and food issues as well for listeners now?
Correct. Absolutely, because glyphosate and other genetically modified organisms. So we've been talking about vaccines, but we also have other genetically modified, which are genetically modified organisms. Vaccines are genetically modified pieces of viruses and things like that. So that's what we've been talking about the rest of this show, but you have to keep the rest of the genetically modified organisms out of your life. Processed food, all processed food, that's why it has glyphosate contaminant, and in even boxed cereals, things you wouldn't necessarily think of. So eating organically really means going back to eating real food. And the reason is because, glyphosate is the glycine, a critical amino acid glycine with a phosphate molecule on it, which makes it not function as glycine, the amino acid that is healthy and nourishing and necessary for many biological processes. So glycine is important in developing the very antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. So these viruses do damage via oxidative stress. And so that means, oxidation, and I'm sure you've talked about it before. Oxidative stress is when you have an unpaired electron on oxygen. So your body needs oxygen for life and for all processes. So if you steal an electron from oxygen, then it can mutate and cause other problems, and it doesn't function as the very healing oxygen that you need. So all of our biological processes, really the heart of everything, is that we go natural, and we've gone so far the other way over the past 40, 50 years as these innovations have really crippled our cellular machinery. We can't make glycine because it's replaced with glyphosate, which is in Roundup in the pesticide. So our coffee has molds on them. We don't respond to any pathogens because we really are under so much oxidative stress. Aluminum, again, causing problems. Aluminum never in tissues. And I hope you've talked to Chris Exley in the past, and in the future we're doing a fundraiser for him in California in the next few weeks. So I'll make that available to your listeners if you'd like, Karen.
Great.
But yeah, it's everything about our environment we need to get back to real sunlight in order to make vitamin D. You need sunlight to convert the inactive vitamin D, let's just put it that way, to the active healing vitamin D that is important in more than 300 immune reactions. So everything about our immune system relies on light, soil, clean food, clean plants, in order to have the very building blocks of our protection, our immune system, our endocannabinoid system. We're so stressed, and that's why the term oxidative stress. So antioxidants, your body makes them, and they make them out of the very building blocks, amino acids, and glycine is a critical one in making glutathione. That's your most important intracellular, within the cell, INTRA, intracellular antioxidants. Vitamin C is the extracellular antioxidant that we need so much, and it from fresh, clean oranges, citrus, in our environment. We just can't have the processed food because even the vitamin C there is not healing, but crippling. And so no processed food, no sugars and glucose, because it skews the metabolism away from healing. And it's that central, I think we've appreciated in the past year or so that these diseases, all of the 21st century, I call them, acquired endocannabinoid immune dysfunction deficiencies. The 21st century AIDS are caused by these, by the corruption of our environment, of our food. GMO means genetically modified. We can't genetically modify our plants away from God because it's not making them healing and nutritious. It's making them toxic, and it's so clear now they're making us sick. And that's the plague of corruption, unfortunately, is our government is lying to us, and they're changing laws such that we don't even know what our food contains. And how many of these products are there. And of course, they're mandating by law these vaccinations on people, or they don't get jobs. So that's where most of our efforts now are in ending the plague of corruption, because, the science is settled. The science is so clear that vaccines are dangerous. They always have been. And the GMO foods, the genetically modified foods, are dangerous. They always have been. And I did that work when I was in an Upjohn Pharmaceutical Companies in 1980s. In 1986 and 1987, my job was to show that that the bovine growth hormone that we were given to cows didn't hurt human cells. And in fact, they did hurt human cells. And of course, the company covered it up. I lost that job. I have a tendency to lose jobs when people tell me to do things that are immoral and illegal. So I lost that job. And that's why we're talking about this today, because it's simple, natural healing.
And all for telling the truth. Doing what's right. Well, I'm proud of you for what you have done as well. It's important to get this information out there to the public. And we're going to take a short break right here. You're listening to Naturally Recovering Autism. Please stay with us. We will be right back.
Have you ever wondered why some children recover from their symptoms of autism while others never seem to get any better? After 13 years of research, Karen Thomas has recovered her own son from his symptoms of autism naturally. She now shares how she did it with you in her free webinar so that you can have the right resources and knowledge to help your child. The definition of recovery is to regain health. Karen offers this to you in 4 stages: healing the gut, natural heavy metal detoxification, balancing the co-infections of autism, brain support, and repair. Register now for this free webinar to help you know what you can do to help your child to sleep better, be more calm, improve focus, and reach their fullest potential to live a happy, healthy life. Go to naturallyrecoveringautism.com/free workshop, empowering parents with the resources to naturally recover autism from a mom who's done it.
Hi there, and welcome back to Naturally Recovering Autism. I am your host, Karen Thomas, and today we have been talking with Dr. Judy Mikovits on the various viruses, coronavirus outbreak, the dangers of using animal tissues in human therapies, and how our kids with autism have been affected by this, and how we want to protect our children and ourselves and our families, and many natural things that can be done. Again, please join me for my free masterclass beginning on March 19th at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/masterclass. You can register for that. And please share the link with friends. We want to make sure that parents out there who need these resources get them, because as you've heard in today's episode about the vital importance of all of this knowledge and knowing what you can do naturally to help your child to improve their life, their quality of life, and for many children to help them recover from their symptoms of autism. And everybody is symptoms vary. Everybody's level of recovery is different, but children can get better if you know what to do. And it's important to know these things. I will also link to some of the things that we discussed today in the show notes, which the page will be at naturallyrecoveringautism.com/73, just the number 73. As we talked about glyphosate and the product Restore, which is now Ion Biome, and I've done an interview with Dr. Zach Bush on that as well. So I'll link to those so you have that further knowledge again, because knowledge is your best friend. And Dr. Mikovits, I really want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I truly admire you, your past, your current, present, what you've been doing and what you do to help everybody in the public to keep us knowledgeable about what's going on so that we can, again, just know how to protect ourselves. And you have a couple of books out. Why don't you maybe want to give us a little bit of description on each of those?
Sure. Well, you can find a lot of information about our books. Our first book, Plague, came out in 2014, which was, of course, before I was aware of any of this. I met Brian Hooker after Plague was in press. You can find our books at plaguethebook.com. Both books are there. At least it links to Amazon, where you can buy them anywhere, Barnes and Noble. But Plague was really about the plague of disease that we see in life, that we saw in our research, and that was what linked it to the retroviruses, to the other viruses. Plague of corruption is what I learned since 2014, and it's the corruption, the pure. It's beyond description to understand what Brian Hooker found that William Thompson and the federal government had covered up, and it's no different in the current coronavirus so-called outbreak. It's government created, and it's an assault on all of humanity. So that's what we can improve people's health best, by just not stopping educating everyone about the plague of corruption in our health and human services. This is what has to be stopped. It's a bipartisan issue, and it has everything to do with the highest levels of our public health services committing crimes against all of humanity and then covering them up. So plaguethebook.com is where you can find those books. As you know, I'm willing to talk. Anyone who writes me at plaguethebook.com, that comes straight to my email address, or can send my email addresses, and we answer as many people as we can. Ken Tech and Lively, my co-author, wrote several books. Bobby Kennedy Jr. And Skyhorse Publishing. Bobby wrote the foreword of our second book. Bobby Kennedy Jr. wrote the foreword, and so it's a fabulous, if everybody can read this book, they'll understand how to protect themselves from our government.
Okay. And I have linked directly to that book as well, to both of the books on the show notes. Again, everything can just be consumed if you're driving in your car off on your morning walk. If you go to naturallyrecoveringautism.com/73, you'll also be able to gather those links. Again, I want to thank you, Dr. Mikovits, for being here. Really appreciate your expertise and your time that you shared with us today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your vacation, because I know that you're on vacation, and I appreciate you taking your time and to do this. So thanks again.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it as well. It's our passion.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. Have a great